This story happened on the 26th of August 2011 and it shook the entire nation. It was supposed to be a typical day in the central business district of Abuja, but about 11 a.m., the air broke. In Garki, not very far away from the US Embassy, the driver of a saloon car starts acting strangely. Everything happened so fast. The driver, without any warning, drives into the United Nations complex, barreling through two security barriers and across the compound. The United Nations building is 5 stories high. 400 people call this building their office, and many more visit it daily for different reasons. The car crashes into the basement and seconds later detonates a bomb.
The twisted metal, shattered glass and huge hole show the strength of the blast. Witnesses say a car packed with explosives ran through two separate gates, exploding just outside the building's main reception. Damage to the concrete structure is extensive. The number of casualties is high. Ambulances have been bringing victims to nearby hospitals. The UN compound houses about 400 employees.
At least 21 people died in that bomb blast, and more than 70 others were injured. This was the second Boko Haram explosion in Abuja in 3 months. The early 2010s in Nigeria was a transitional one for us as a country, and not in a good way. It is perhaps when our reputation as an unsafe country was cemented. Between 2009 and 2015, Boko Haram activities led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people and the displacement of millions more. That's a really heartbreaking number to say. Hundreds of thousands of people died, either directly from Boko Haram violent raids or indirectly from the resulting food crisis in the region. This is the backdrop of today's story. There was a bomb blast, and somewhere in the middle of the chaos and confusion, we have a woman trapped in one of the scariest moments a mother could imagine.
My name is Guyan Fese, and I'm Membe Fese's mother. Membe is actually my second daughter. I have 3 kids. Membe has an elder sister who is late, and she has a brother. Oh, Membe. Is a very was a very, very, very quiet child. Very quiet child. Very independent and very, very, very independent. Really, she didn't need you to help her because she had an elder sister at the time. So if we were going out, say maybe to the club, on Friday evening, she was say 1.5, and her elder sister was just about 2 years plus, because the gap between them was quite small. And I would naturally have the instinct to want to pick up the younger one, and she would say no, she would rather walk, and then you have to carry the older one. So that's how we used to go around. So she did everything by herself. She would talk to herself, very domesticated, even at that age at the time. As a mother, I just knew that she would grow up to be somebody that would be very helpful and supportive of me. So, I was just interested in seeing her grow up. Oh, 2011 is actually one year that if I could, I would have blocked out of my memory. But since I can't, I'm just living. So basically, I remember went to university in the UK, and so she had a project to write as part of her master's program, and she had research which she was doing here in Nigeria. I think she was doing something around poverty and development or something like that. So she had to go to the United Nations building. She had an interview with somebody in UNICEF office. So it was a normal morning. I woke up, my husband woke up, everybody just said what we were doing. My husband left for work, I left for work. But I think Membe left before I left for work, actually, with her cousin, and dropped her off at the American Embassy, which is just down the road from the UN building. And so everybody went to work, everything was normal. So about 11 a.m. or so, I got a call from my husband asking me where Membe was. And I thought that was very strange because we left the house almost at the same time. He went to his office and I went to mine. So when I didn't respond the way he expected, he now says, there's been an explosion at the United Nations building. So I didn't quite get it. Then he said there's just been an explosion. He just watched it on TV and that he was going there.
Around 11 o'clock this morning, local time, the United Nations House in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, was struck by a car bomb.
I feel very sad. It's really shocking that this type of thing can happen in this country, where people will find it, will joy, if I put it that way, in bombing a place like this. The United Nations building here represents the whole global community, and this is an attack on the international community, and I think it's really very sad.
At that moment, I was kind of blank. So I picked my phone and tried to call Membe. I called, it didn't go through. I called again, it didn't go through. So some of my colleagues in the office just said, do you want us to go with it? I remember particularly there's this British lady, my colleague Emma. She just said, I'll come with you. So we hopped into the car and we went towards the UN house. But at the time, you can imagine it was cordoned off. So we didn't gain access to the place. We were completely confused. We didn't know, there was no information. So we just decided to go to the National Hospital because we saw ambulances. We just saw commotion around that area. And when we got to the National Hospital, there was no information, really. Everybody was confused. Everybody was dazed. There were just ambulances coming in and going out. People were busy. You didn't know what was happening. And nothing. So at a point, I just saw a nurse and some nurses, they came out, I think, to receive some people who were just brought in. And I just asked, I said, what's happening? She just said, oh, we don't know. People are injured, very serious. The matter is very serious. That was all she said. And then she left. You don't want to think that your person is hurt or something. You don't want to think that you were confused, but hoping against hope that yours is not part of the So this colleague of mine decided that, look, since we are not getting anywhere, just standing here, can I just take you home? She said. So she decided that I should come home, and then we'll figure out what we needed to do. So I came back home. So a number of my friends started coming to the house. So they just come just because the head member was there, and since we had no information. So there were quite a number of ladies here with me, and my husband wasn't around. He was in the hospital. And it turned out that because there was no information, everybody had to look for their person. So he now had to go to the mortuary to first of all eliminate that she wasn't part of the dead. So you can only imagine his state of being, So he went in and he didn't see her. It was so traumatic. If she's not dead, then where is she? Later in the evening, somebody just told my husband that there's one patient that they've gone past like 2 or 3 times that he suspects that that might be Mende. So apparently he had gone past, he's been checking through the wards. He saw very seriously injured people but didn't quite recognize Membe. So by this time, because she was bleeding all over her body, they had wrapped her, bandaged every bit of her body. And she was dark. She was now very black because she had lost so much blood. Couldn't recognize her because you could only see, I think she was bandaged everywhere. You could only just see, her eyes or something. Every other place was bleeding. Her head was bleeding. Her back was bleeding. Everywhere else was bleeding non-stop. So what they were doing was just pumping in blood. And her friends and colleagues were busy soliciting for blood donation. When my husband finally saw her, he thought she was in a state that I should not see her. So apparently talking to my friends and making sure that they did not allow me to go to the hospital to see her, because what could he do? Even for him, it was traumatic, not to mention. So, but I felt worse because I'd lost a daughter before, so you can imagine where I'm coming from. So at a point I was frustrated, and I just told my friends, I said, look, I'm her mother. If my daughter is dead, I'd like to see her and pray for her. If my daughter is alive, I'd still like to pray for her. So either way, I need to be close to her, because if she's alive, she would feel me that I'm there. I'm her mother. So because we're all mothers, they just quickly gave up and said, okay. So we now left the house to go to the hospital. That's when I finally saw her, and this was pretty late in the evening. So I went in to the room, and they just pointed her to me. Of course, I could not see any part of her body. It was all bandaged. And of course, blood, because of the volume of the blood, you could see the blood through the bandage and all of that. And they didn't have enough time to do anything more sophisticated than what they did at the time because of the number of injured people. So I tried to hold her, but there was nowhere to hold. So I just put my hand on her head with the bandage, of course. I said, Membe, if you can hear me, agree with me. This sickness is not unto death, but is that God's name will be glorified. That's all I could do. Because, you just need to have seen her. She was black, like black as in very dark. And even now, just wondering whether there was any motion at all, or whether she responded to that, to my words, but that was all I could do. So I just prayed for her, that simple prayer, and left. So as I was walking out of the intensive unit, I just whispered to my husband, I said, get my daughter out of this country. So a friend of his who was just standing next to him heard that and told him not to worry. And that's how that gentleman worked, and they facilitated, and we got an air ambulance that airlifted her out of this country 2 days later. When I boarded that air ambulance, the doctors, first, they were about the crew, they had a crew of 7. All of them were medical doctors. All on board that flight were medical doctors. Even the nurse, also, the pilot was a doctor, so that if anybody was tired, if they had to do any surgery, they could support themselves. And they came ready to operate her in the aircraft. Once I boarded that aircraft, he now told me, said, look, you have your doctor here. Whatever we need, we'll tell the doctor. And so he is standing in on your behalf because we would explain things to him. So he now looked at the report and he came to me and said, but do you know that your daughter's lungs have collapsed? The doctor approached me. I haven't spoken to the Nigerian doctor who was with him on board. He approached me and said, does your daughter react to any medication? So I was processing it. He said, don't worry, it can't get worse. In fact, the doctor was in such a hurry that he just told me, don't worry, it can't get worse. By the time we arrived in London, a ground ambulance was already stationed to take her to the hospital. And within seconds, they offloaded her and they had left. So when the surgery was over, the doctors came out, and her friends wouldn't let. These are her friends, her age mates, by the way, all 23-ish. So when the doctors came out, the problem was whom would they tell the news to? And so they just told her friends. And he said that she was amputated. So one of the friends had the courage to go into the theater to see her, So he went in, and immediately he saw her. He just removed his rosary. He has a rosary, and just put it on her neck and prayed for her and left. After they sorted themselves out, one of them had the courage now to come in and tell me. And he now said that, Mommy, the operation has been done. Unfortunately, Membe lost her leg. So you can only imagine, I think, my state of being.
My name is Membe Fese, and I'm a victim of the United Nations building bomb blast that happened in 2011.
So Membe was unconscious for 4 weeks, completely unconscious. She was on life support for 4 weeks. So different things happened. Even the doctors at some point gave up on her. So the diagnosis was that she had 3% chances of survival. That's all they gave her, the doctors, because of the magnitude of the problem she had. According to her, she had massive brain damage. She had injury on her head. She had a broken head. She had everything broken on her body. Everything needed something new. So they had essentially given up, actually, on her. They were just waiting for her to pass. One day, I just thought I saw her move. But it was very tiny movement. And that's how she woke up gradually,
Apparently, I woke up for 1 week and I was only blinking yes and no. So I was not talking, I was not moving. So at a point when I woke up, there's still so many gadgets connected to me. So they're making me do everything. So if I want to wee, if I want to poo, if I want to bath, I'll do everything on the bed.
And then when she woke up was another wahala. Eventually she woke up. She started to move like a snake. She just kept rubbing her body, just behaving like twisting. And by the time they knew it, she had ripped off all the plaster, the bandages, everything, and started bleeding all over again. So we went through that and all of that. So stage by stage.
Like, mommy wanted to be the first person to tell me what happened when I was conscious. So she would come to the hospital around 7, 8. She would leave around 10 o'clock. So she wanted, when I'm awake, she wanted to be the first person to tell me. I don't know if, I actually never asked her if she was the first person.
So once I thought once she opened her eyes, I said, Membe, do you know you had an accident? You had an accident in Nigeria. You are in London now. We flew you. So I went through to tell her that we flew her to the hospital, that we were here for her, that we were getting the best treatment for her. And by the grace of God, she'll be okay and all of that. So I kept on telling her every day. I would say, Membe, do you know you have an accident? You're this and that. So I then told her, I said, you are, the day I told her that, they've cut off your leg, right? You're an amputee now. She just looked at me and said, Mommy, don't worry, there's technology.
But she said that is when she realized that I was very strong, or my support system was very good. But she said that she will never forget that I just said there's technology.
Yes, like I told you, I have already gone through one major trauma where I lost a daughter. So already that was a major lesson for me in life, that nothing is permanent. Because my daughter was my eldest daughter, and for women, you can tell your first daughter, we're pretty close. She was very funny. She was a sweet girl and just passed away like that. So that was something in my life. So by the time this happened again, it was just, it just threw me off, But for some reason, I was pretty strong. I just believed that God was not going to let me lose another daughter. So I was strong in prayer. I was strong in belief that she would come around. But more importantly, it's the love that I experienced from everybody that kept me standing. So I really felt like everybody was bearing my burden, and people showed love. Even remember in hospital, the love was unprecedented. There was never a day that she had less than 12 friends in the hospital with her.
The earliest memory I remember is my birthday, October 3rd. Because I just remember a lot of people, and the annoying thing, I was going to surgery that day, so I couldn't eat. But I remember them bringing a lot of food, a large cake, a lot of food and everything, but I could not eat it. They even brought alcohol. Somewhere that was on admission, they actually brought alcohol fine to the hospital. But I remember I just remember even the pictures. A lot of people were there, just came to wish me happy birthday. A lot of gifts. The hospital was literally overwhelmed that day.
Thank you for listening to this episode. My name is Hawa Lawal and I hosted this episode. Mo Isu and Ebiye Suwari produced the story with assistance from Ewoma Omogene. Lulu Manuel helped record the story. It was edited and sound designed by Mo Isu. Ewoma Omogene is our managing producer. Ebiye Suwari is our executive producer. Voix Collective produces this podcast. You can find Voix Collective on social media at VOIX collective.